Kevi, BHMS MD Medicine. He passed out BHMS in 2015 from Father Muller Homeopathic Medical College. Completed his MD in Practice of Medicine from Father Muller Homeopathic Medical College in the year 2015. Presently, he is working as Assistant Professor in Department of Medicine, Father Muller Homeopathic Medical College. We IHMA Kottayam, on behalf of IHMA Kerala, very happily welcome our faculty, Dr. Suresh Kevi, for the session. Doctor, please start the session. Okay.
Yes. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Breaking. Okay.
Okay. So, okay, fine. So, good afternoon, all. I'm Dr. Suraj.
Doctor, is there any fan nearby you?
Fan.
I think it's the.
Is there a fan directly hitting to the mic?
No. Okay, now is it okay?
Sound some little bit breaking.
Is it okay, sir? Now?
Yes, sir, once again. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, sir, now it's okay.
Now it's clear. Oh.
Okay, fine. So today's topic is cardiovascular investigation. So when I'm sitting with this topic, or when I was preparing on my final preparation yesterday, I heard a news like Malayalis or the Keralites will be knowing that our young or a middle-aged person, the director or a scriptwriter named Sachi, he expired due to a cardiac arrest or a heart attack. So the scenario, when you look at it, was like he was underwent a surgery. It was his second surgery for a spinal. I mean, that is what I read about that. So it was his second surgery, which means when a person go for a surgery, obviously he will be going for all the kind of checkups. No, so until they get a fitness, they will not go for surgery. So even in spite of getting all those things, a person is developing cardiac arrest. So recent days we had many experiences like Nitin in Kerala, or an actor from Karnataka, Chiranjeevi Sarja. So very young people are dying due to cardiac problems. So like very young people are losing their life. And when you inquire about that, the reason is always a cardiac origin or an MI. So a myocardial infarction or cardiac complaints are the reason. So that is what today's scenario, or olden days when I was small and we used to hear a 65 or a 50 above years old people used to get heart attack and die because of that complaint. But nowadays it has come to my age. It is like at the age of 30s or 27, people started dying due to cardiac arrest. So the importance of this system or the cardiological investigation arises here. So when to do, or if these people would have done a proper investigations on time, they could have saved their life. Maybe they were having internally the problem, but it was not showing up the throwing out the symptoms. So the internally pathology was there for them, and suddenly it flourished and they lost their life. So that is what I'm just giving an idea why this topic is selected. So this is the idea behind this. So when I consider this as a cardiovascular investigation as my topic, I divided it into three. One is which, when, and why. So which are the tests which is available in case of cardiovascular investigation, and when and why we are doing that. So first we'll go with the which are the topic is present, or which are the investigation which is present in case of cardiovascular. So just introduction regarding cardiovascular diseases. Cardiovascular diseases are complex in nature. As you know, it is very complex, many types, and the complications of it or the prognosis of it, it's all are very complicated ones. So complex in nature, new and advanced diagnostic tests are constantly being introduced. So it is like olden days, like before 5 years, whatever we learned, and today what we are learning, maybe the investigations are adding day by day. So new investigations are coming into this segment. So we have to be updated constantly. We have to be updated, like we should update ourselves for this test. And they are helpful to diagnose and prognose and management. So these tests help us to diagnose, understand the problem, and to know how this prognosis, how this disease is prognosing, and how we can manage. So broadly, if you take the cardiovascular investigation, we have two types. One is non-invasive and invasive. So non-invasive is like tests are blood test or blood investigations, electrocardiographic test, and cardiac ultrasound, cardiac imaging, carotid and extremity vascular testing. So these will come under a non-invasive variety of cardiac tests. There are tests under this we will be dealing later. And first one, blood test. So these are the things which usually we get to do, no? So blood investigation. So which all blood investigation we have to do? So these are the primary, blood workup or primary investigation workup we have to do when you are suspecting a patient of cardiovascular system. So first thing is blood glucose level, lipid profile, renal function test, cardiac enzymes, and BNP or brain natriuretic peptide, and C-reactive protein, electrolyte, calcium and magnesium, anti-streptolizin or ABG, that is arterial blood glucose level, APTT and PT. So these are the tests usually in case of cardiovascular system we do, because heart complaint doesn't come alone. No? It may be because of some complaints we are getting heart complaint, or when we are having a cardiac problem, we may get another complaints along with that. So we have to do certain blood tests to identify that. And that's what I have given here in red in color: blood glucose, lipid profile, and renal function test. They are must when a patient comes in a middle age and suspecting a cardiac problem. Always these three tests is must. We have to do this, and because sometimes if the person is having diabetes, maybe their blood the sugar level will be high, but they will not come up with any symptoms. So it's always better to screen them with these three tests and lipid profile to know when any dyslipidemia is there, whether the cholesterol level is high or low. Once you get to know, then we can suspect other things which is related to that disease and go further investigation. So, and another one is renal function test. Again, until the GFR comes low, less than normal range, I mean less than 30 or 40, the person will not have the symptoms. Or in case if the person is having creatinine more than 3, there won't be any symptoms. So until we test, we will not get to know what will be the importance or what is the condition inside that person. So we have to go with these 3 investigation. And cardiac enzymes and BNPs are cardio-specific investigation. So other 3 will give an idea. There will be some problem. These are cardiac specific, in which conditions like I'll be telling it later. And BNP, especially in case of heart failure. And CRP and electrolyte, these things depends on the cases. Like when there is a infection, there will be CRP will be raised, or electrolyte again when there is a problem in that. So I'm not going with the disease conditions there. These are the tests according to the case we have to ask for. We have to ask this blood test according to the conditions. And when you say CA reactive protein, is inflammatory marker produced by liver. So increased whenever there is inflammation anywhere in the body. So it is like when there is an inflammation in our body, the CRP will be raised. So we cannot tell it is because of cardiac, but a high sensitivity CRP can be a marker for ongoing inflammation in the arterial system due to atherosclerosis. So high sensitivity CRP will give an idea whether there is an inflammation in the arterial system due to atherosclerosis. And this report can predict the cardiac events in these patients. And cardiac markers. So when we talk about these kind of acute emergencies in cardiology, these are the important investigations in today's scenario. So cardiac markers are there are many cardiac markers. That is, one is creatinine kinase MB, otherwise known as CKMB, increased in cardiac muscles. They are cardiac specific proteins. So increased in cardiac muscle damage. Whenever there is a cardiomyocyte damage, there will be increased creatinine kinase MB, and it increase within 4 to 6 hours after a cardiac damage. Within 4 to 6 hours, there will be an increase in creatinine kinase MB. Another one, it peaks to the highest point within 18 to 24 hours. So following an acute ischemic attack, so there is a heart attack, there will be increased CKMB level within 24 hours, and it will come back to normal. and normal value is less than 24 U/R. And troponin is another one. The troponin is another one cardiac marker composed of three proteins: troponin C, troponin I, troponin T. So you can remember ITC, but usually we do troponin I and T because they are the more cardiac specific. So rise within 3 hours. So remember here, the CKMB rise within 4 to 6 hours. But in case of troponin, it rise in case of myocardial infarction. In the case of heart attack, I'm talking. When there is a heart attack, these cardiac markers or these proteins will rise in the blood. So in case of this one troponin, it increases within 3 hours and persists up to 7 to 10 days. So remember that it persists up to 7 to 10 days. Any rise indicate a myocardial damage. So there is a myocardial damage. So normal value is troponin I 0.06 Ng per ml, or trop T is 0.2 Ng per ml. So myoglobins, oxygen binding protein found in cardiac and skeletal muscle. This is another one cardiac marker. So these are oxygen binding protein found in cardiac and skeletal muscle. So remember, here it is found in a skeletal muscle also. So when there is a skeletal muscle damage also, it can rise. So level rise within 1 hour after cell death, peak to 4 to 6 hours. So the first thing to increase is myoglobin here. So remember that it is the first thing to increase here. But in troponin, it is 3 hours. Here it is 1 hour. Creatinine kinase MB, it is 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours. So returns to normal within 24 to 36 hours. So these are the tests. Why I'm giving more importance to this test is like our scenario is getting worsened, or the people are getting more heart attacks or MIs are there. So we have to clinically also, sometimes we may get patients, we have to identify that. So another one is electrocardiographic test. So electrocardiographic test is main thing we know ECG. Most of us do that, and nowadays it is coming a new one thing is like, not nowadays, it is since many years, but exercise stress test or TMT, and head up right test, and metabolic exercise test, and ambulatory monitors. These are the electrocardiographic tests. So ambulatory tests are blood pressure monitor, that is 24 hours blood pressure monitor having an instrument in our body that they will be recording, and Holter monitor and ECG monitor for 24 hours, and loop recorder. There will be an implantable loop recorder in our body that will be helping us to interpret the cause of the problems, like if there is a palpitations or this arrhythmia, it will find out the cause, and CardioNet and telephonic transmitters. These are the ambulatory monitors. And ultrasound studies in cardiac investigation. One more main thing is ultrasound studies, that is echocardiography. So ECG we usually do, echo also we usually do, and TMT. And the echocardiography is an ultrasound study in case of cardiology. We just go for the functional the structural unit of the heart. We get to know about the valves and the ventricles or other muscles, any abnormalities or any congenital abnormalities. All those things we get to know, we can pick up from doing an echo. And another one is transesophageal echo. It is not usually done, but there is a test like this that is known as a transesophageal echo, that is TEE. The other one what I have marked in red color is transthoracic echo, TTE. That usually what we do. And transesophageal echo is like an endoscopy. If you have experienced or seen an endoscopy, how they do, and a probe or a camera is passed through the mouth, like same way, instead of the camera, they fix an ultrasound probe at the tip of the endoscopic wire, then pass inside and to know the posterior part of the heart. So it helps when usually the cardiologist send this, or when the echo like TT echoes are not satisfied, you can go with that. You're suspecting something posteriorly, you can go for transesophageal echo. And exercise stress test means, as you see the picture here, the patient has to exercise, cycling or any other activity, then there will be an echo. So when we are giving more pressure to or more activity to the heart, means that whether the heart is able, how heart works during that, during the stress. Another one, dobutamine stress echo means in elderly people, they may not be able to do the exercise. So we want to know when there is that level, how their heart works. So to avoid that, there we inject the dobutamine into the veins, and it gives the dobutamine will produce an heart rate of that exercised person. Then we are doing an echo that is known as dobutamine stress echo. And another study is cardiac imaging technologies. Chest X-ray we see in case of pulmonary edema or any heart failure or cardiomegaly, we get to know from chest x-ray, but usually we doesn't go for cardiac CT. No, usually CTs will not, because heart is always a moving object. So when you take a CT, we always have to be what to say, stabilize the organ. So heart, we cannot ask the heart to stop for some time. So here, that's why the normal CT, sometimes it is not advisable, but in case of an advanced CT like CT spiral or multi-detector CT, MDCT, that is MDCT, it helps us, because in MDCT there are two beams, so multiple beams are penetrating to an organ. And because usually a normal single what to say beam CT, it takes 30 seconds to get a slice. I mean, get an area. If it is a multiple slice, it reduces the time. So in this kind of test also used in cardiology. And carotid Doppler, the person who is having patients with the history of stroke or TIA, recurrent syncopal attack and all, when you're getting, we can go for carotid Doppler and syncope evaluation. So they're currently getting syncope. So we have to see whether any carotid artery occlusion is there. And prior to CABG, before going for a CABG, we have to check the carotid artery occlusion. And if you're getting a block in carotid artery, it doesn't correlate with the patient's risk for stroke. So if maybe when you do a carotid artery Doppler, you're finding the person is not having any block in that, it doesn't mean that patient will not develop a stroke. So it does not have any correlation with the risk for a patient developing for stroke. So venous Doppler, especially done in case of DVT. So another one is invasive test. These are the tests which we usually doesn't have to bother, because it is not decided by us. These tests are decided by a cardiologist. So like here, it is cardiac catheterization, coronary angiography, carotid angiography, intravascular ultrasound, echo, electrophysiological studies, and myocardial biopsy. So angiography you would have heard, and cardiac catheterization is to pass the whatever the catheter, what they're passing through inside the arteries, they have to have a cardiac catheterization. Through that, they go for myocardial biopsy. And one more investigation test is intravascular ultrasound. Again, same thing, inside the artery, they pass the ultrasound probe and see. Now, usually in case of a coronary angiogram, what we get to know, there is a block, but in this variety of tests, what we have, we will understand that what kind of block or what are the particles are there, whether it is what kind of block it is, how much it is a block. So exactly we'll see a ultrasound view of that inside the artery. We get to know that is intravascular ultrasound, and electrophysiological studies are there. And myocardial biopsy, in case of if somebody wants to do a transplant, heart transplant, there we take the myocardial biopsy, again through the cardiac catheterization. So these are the few investigations in cardiology. So when we deal this, there are many. I have just went very fastly, I know, but because we are discussing it later with the examples. So if you think, there are many cases like, as I said, heart attack or heart failures or conduction defect. Those things will get, like usually we get that kind of cases. But other like other, like if you say, now what I'm telling is there are some tests which is must know for us, like ECG, echo, and some blood tests. Those things are we should know that, and when to do or when not to do. Other, like if I say this intravascular ultrasound, we doesn't have to bother, because it is nice to know there is a test existing in our country or today's scenario, that is okay. But there are must know investigations that we will be dealing with the examples now. So now we understood these are the investigations lesson, and very briefly we will talk about the cardiovascular diseases. So coronary artery disease, that is CAD, most of us know, and leading cause of death in the world in both the sex. It's not predominant in male or female, it is seen in both the sex, and 1/3 of the all death in the world. So as we said, that's what we are telling now here. Like what I gave few examples at the beginning of my class. Because 1/3 of the death is due to coronary artery disease. What happened? Impairment of blood flow through the coronary artery. There is an atheroma or atherosclerosis and necrosis of the myocardial tissue, causing lack of oxygen and blood flow. And symptoms like silent ischemia or angina. There will be chest pain, stable and unstable angina. Means stable means okay, I'm not going to that deep. Okay, stable and unstable angina and leading to death, means MI and leading to death. So MI is a result of occluded coronary artery, and So example, if I want to give you is like, see, this area. Host, sir, can you just on the annotation?
Dr. Matthew,
Okay, so I'll just go here. If you see
I
these
will,
three
I will do.
images,
How to do?
okay, no problem. The normal coronary artery will be like this, and when there is an atherosclerosis, what happens? There is an occlusion. But when there is an this second picture, if you see here, so when there is an occlusion, but the blood passes. So when these people exert, when they are exerting and more amount of blood is required, that time they experience chest pain. That is exertional. There will be chest pain will be there, but the third one is atherosclerosis with the blood clot. So there is a clot which is occluding that area. Now that black mark, you can see a black ring over there. So in that case, if that area is occluded due to this, what to say, the third picture, same way that blood vessel is occluded, adjacent to that area completely, there will be blood loss and those tissues will go for necrosis and there will be infection. So then that is known as myocardial infarction. So that is what about coronary artery disease. The investigations are mainly ECG, stress test, and coronary angiography. So ECG, we will get to know whether is there any what to say, any left ventricular failure, sorry, left ventricular hypertrophy, all those things we'll get to know from ECG and stress test. So if you're suspecting in ECG, we are finding there is what to say, some findings we are getting in ECG, and then we are suspecting this patient is having coronary artery. To identify coronary artery, to diagnose coronary artery, we have to go for TMT. In TMT, it gives an idea whether there is a block or not. Or heart failure, syndrome of ventricular, means next is heart failure. It is a syndrome of ventricular dysfunction. Heart may not provide tissue with adequate blood for metabolic needs. So here the problem is the heart is not able to pump the blood to the periphery and for the need for the metabolic needs. So the reason can be many, and the type is there is right ventricular heart failure and the left ventricular heart failure and congestive. So symptoms will be depends on the area which side is affected, but again on a broader aspect we can say shortness of breath and chronic tiredness, dyspnea and ascites. These people will be having all these symptoms, and mainly if you see in clinically we can get an idea if there is a right ventricular problem is there, the patient will be having the first thing to elevate is the JVP. So when you check the JVP will be raised. So there is a right ventricular problem, then that will be the right heart failure, then JVP will be raised, and later on the patient will be having ascites and pedal edema. But in case of left ventricle, what happened, it is problem with the left ventricle, there is a either problem with the contraction or the, what to say, relaxation. So if the blood is not able to pump enough amount of blood, they will be having a back pressure to the left atrium and going back to the lungs, and there will be pulmonary edema or pulmonary hypertension, and suddenly they'll be having shortness of breath and decreased cerebral hypoperfusion, decreased perfusion to the cerebrum. There can be syncopal attack. So that kind of what to say, presentation will be there for the left ventricular failure. So next is right. These are the pathophysiology. So next is cardiomyopathy. Here it is heart muscles are becoming enlarged or thickened or stiff, reducing the effectiveness of the heart. So either the heart muscles will become very big. So that image, if you see, there is a dilated cardiomyopathy, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or restrictive cardiomyopathy. So this is we can diagnose by an ECG or electrocardiography, especially by electrocardiography. One I said already the echocardiography. I said at the beginning, echocardiography will help us for finding out the structural changes of the heart. And arrhythmias. So arrhythmia means there is a conduction system in heart. So any disturbance that occurs in normal heart rhythm, due to that, vary in severity from an occasional missed beat. There will be one occasional missed beat to a serious abnormality of rate and rhythm. Even it is really fatal. Because of this, the patient even can die. Because of the arrhythmia or the conduction disorder, the patient even die, or from a simple missed beat. And the severity impairs the pumping ability of the heart. So if there is a if it is severe, the pumping ability of the heart will be affected.
For leave over here.
So next is valvular disorders.
Leave.
That is symptoms are in case of the, I think somebody's mic is on, sir. Okay. The valvular disorders are aortic regurgitation and stenosis, mitral regurgitation and stenosis, pulmonary tricuspid and regurgitation and stenosis. So in that, what happens is symptoms will be syncope or angina, exertional dyspnea, dizziness, palpitation, or on examination we can get a in examination we should get murmur. In that case, then we can send for an echo. Yeah, I'm a bit fast, I think.
Can you bit slow? No problem.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Okay.
We can have a second session, no problem.
Okay, so next is okay, fine. So the diagnosis we can do by doing an echo, because it is again a structural abnormality. So valves are having problem. Another one is rheumatic heart disease. Why I said, because of rheumatic heart disease there can be valvular problems. So peripheral vascular diseases, an arterial and venous lymphatic disorder or arterial disorder like Raynaud's syndrome and TAO and deep vein thrombosis in venous, and these are the peripheral vascular disorders, especially we see in clinical practice. So next we are going for a I went it very fast. I know I was very fast, but here onwards we'll go a little slow, because now we'll go with the cases. Cases means case 1, it is Mr. Ramesh, 42-year-old patient, no risk factor, no comorbidity for him. BMI was 26, means he is overweight but not obese. Came for master health checkup, means regularly, like in our hospital we are having like full body checkup or whatever. So he came for that, a master health checkup. So now my question is, which of the following investigation is least useful for this fellow? Blood sugar level, lipid profile, renal function test, echo, and TMT. You can just text me or chat me the answers in the chat box.
Echo. Suraj, can you see or should I read?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay.
So I think most of them are telling echo. So people are answering still. So in this case, I will tell exercise testing or the TMT will be least useful. Why? Because the testing goal of exercise test is to include a controlled temporary ischemic state during a clinical ECG observation. Means so to induce a controlled temporary ischemic state during a clinical ECG observation. So TMT tries to detect hemodynamically significant blockage of the coronary. So it mainly helps us to understand the coronary artery disease. So in this patient, he has come for a simple health checkup. So in that case, he doesn't have to do a TMT. We are not found any comorbidity in him. We did not find any symptom also. So blood sugar, as we said, he may be diabetic, but no symptom. So blood sugar level for a master health checkup, it's always good. Lipid profile, as I said at the first, when we are talking about the blood investigation, that is also important. Renal function test. So we said those three which were there in red in color are compulsory, and echocardiography as compared to TMT, echocardiography is okay. So when I ask which is the least, it is always TMT, because we did not even do a ECG in this case. So always we have to TMT is not useful. So why TMT is most of the time TMT, there will be false positive and false negative results in the pre-test. Like when there is a pre-test probability is low, means pre-test probability means for doing the test there is no probability, like we are not getting any indication to do that test. If you do, there is possibility of false positive, maybe we are getting a positive TMT or we are getting a negative TMT. There is possibility. So when you get that, when you get a positive TMT, what next is normally the next stage is going for a coronary angiogram. So it will be unnecessarily we will be doing that. So it is not advisable and might result in unnecessary further investigation. And negative TMT, again, one more thing, as I said in case of carotid Doppler, again, a negative TMT does not rule out occurrence of MI in near future. So like a person came for a test and he has done the TMT today, it came negative. It doesn't mean after 3 days he may develop MI. It does not what to say, a negative TMT does not rule out the occurrence of MI in near future. So TMT is not advisable in this case. So all the investigations were normal in this patient. How frequently one should undergo a master health checkup? So how frequently? How frequently how he should go for health checkup? So there is no option. You can just write. So okay, someone is telling 1 year. So as such, there is no years or months is given. Like this frequently we have to. But if you're finding this first, like we have to go for blood test, sugar and RFT and lipid profile we have to go. But other tests like going for CT, going for TMT or echo is not necessary every year, or just going for a master health checkup, because nowadays the corporate hospitals have developed a culture among us. Like now maybe like our relatives or parents will be telling I have to go for a full body checkup. So that is a culture which is developed by a corporate hospital, and it is now slowly we all adapted with that. So just going and doing one test and thinking that I don't have any problem and eating properly. So that shouldn't happen. So they have to do these 3 blood tests, RFT or blood sugar and lipid profile. Come to me or come to a doctor, and we will decide what test we have to do in further. So as such, we don't have to do any this kind of master health checkup regularly. You can advise your patients or your relatives. You don't have to do. You just check these 3 things and come to me. If any like what is it, any change in that result, I will tell you what has to be done. So case 2, another case is Mr. John, 42-year-old person, a smoker. FBS was 130 mg/dl 2 months back, but not on any medication for the same. And his BMI is again 26. Again, he is overweight, not obese. Wanted to do a master health checkup. Which of the following investigation is least useful in him? You can write your answers. Yeah. By the time I'll just give an answer for Dr. Chandrasekhar has given. If there is a family history, then the question was, yeah. If comorbidity or family history is there, it is useful to go for master. I agree, because if there is a comorbidity, the person is having anything. So by this question, you would have understood that. So if that is there, it is always good to go for. But unless like what to say, without that, just going and doing all those examinations will not be useful. So here, many answers came like chest X-ray, TMT, renal function test. Again, here renal function test, again, those 3 things I don't have to tell again, already we said. Here, chest X-ray, the patient is smoker, but he don't have any kind of respiratory symptoms here. So we don't have to go for chest X-ray. That will be the least useful, because chest X-ray will not cause, and like chest X-ray will help us to identify any that kind of abnormalities. But here I suggest for TMT. Why? Because it is only like what is it, in TMT, he is a smoker, is a non-case of smoker. There is always there is a possibility
Student
of
screen sharing is off, I think. Screen sharing, your tab screen sharing is off.
like, yeah. It is coming actually. Connecting it.
Okay.
Okay, because my
Okay, right.
so chest X-ray is the least useful, because TMT why we suggest is he's having the comorbidity, or what to say, he's a smoker. So there he can have a coronary artery disease. So identifying that coronary artery disease at the earliest is always better. We can advise him, see if the TMT came positive, you can tell him, see, you may have the blood vessel block. If we are telling, usually most of us will tell that he's having a block in the heart. So in layman's language, we can tell them and make them understand that, see, now because of your smoking, you are having this problem. So if you continue this will be your future. You may get a heart attack in future. So quit the smoking. So that way, it is always better to go for TMT in that patient. But chest X-ray is not useful. So case 3, Miss Aisha, a 58-year-old female, came with a non-case of diabetic since 6 years on drugs and no other comorbidity. Came with the complaint of 2 episodes of vomiting since afternoon. Complaints of she has given an explanation like something is happening to me. Like in Malayalam we say, "Endekyo avunnu." That's what her description regarding regarding her problem. And which of the following is the least important investigation for her? So many said ECG. Even okay. Many said ECG. This was her ECG. Like even I had, it was my personal experience when the patient came to me. This was the description she was giving. No typical symptoms of what we learned in our books. There was no chest pain. There was no profuse sweating. There is no radiation of pain. But somewhere I got a thought and sent for this ECG. This was the result. So someone can just comment on the ECG. Yes, Asha, there was only 2 episodes of vomiting. So if we see here, I think Dr. Deepu,
Yes,
annotation
yes.
is able to audible result.
I think the annotation can be, you can zoom the screen, no problem. You can zoom the screen.
Okay, fine. But take, okay, fine. So I have zoomed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's visible now.
This
It's okay.
area you can see, no? Yeah. Okay. ST elevation here, the upper one and the lower one. There is an ST elevation, and now AVF also there is an ST elevation. So 2, 3, 2, 3 AVF. There is always AVF. There is an ST elevation. So it is 2, 3 AVF. So inferior wall. So some people have commented about the ECG. Okay, acute MI, lateral MI. Okay. So diagnosis is inferior wall MI. Because 2, 3 AVF is always like, I will be, if time is there, I'll tell about the ECG readings, basics of ECG later. So it is an ST elevation MI. So myocardial infarction. What next? As a homeopath, what we are supposed to do? You know, acute MI is always an acute emergency. Even the patient can die within few minutes also. So whether to keep with us or to send. The primarily that sort, no, if you are sending, it takes 45 to 1 hour the report to come, and to confirm it that whether it is MI, and then referring, or better to refer at that stage. So better, I think it is always better to refer when an MI come. If somebody is having a personal experience of treating it, okay, fine, or we are having all the facility of all the problems, like what to say, all the ventilatory measures with us, it is fine, we can treat, or we can take a risk. Otherwise, in a clinical way, giving the medicine and sending the patient home, it is always risky. The patient will not come back to you. I mean, will not come back means he will not be existing. So I mean, you will not be there, he may expire. So these are the, what next is CPK-MB troponin. Means if you are having all these things with us, we can go for CPK-MB, fine, or troponin, the cardiac markers, and find out the case, whether it is an MI or not. But there is no doubt there is an ST elevation, so T inversion is there, so it is an MI, but we can go for it. And thrombolysis, as I said, thrombolysis, whether to with the homeopathic medicine, because there is a thrombus, there is a occlusion, whether to lyse that with the homeopathic medicine or sending to a cardiologist is our experience and our courage. So but my suggestion is we have to refer as early as possible. So what then we can go for echo, and if you are after stabilizing the patient, we have to go for coronary angiogram. So this is the normally what we have to do when there is an MI. That is again, okay, somebody said nitroglycerin start. Okay, fine, we cannot start. Then this is what an idea what I said was, now today's scenario, the patient may come to us with all these problems. They tell all these are their problems. They may not tell a chest pain. So always be little cautious regarding this kind of patients whom, especially diabetic patient, there is possibility of silent MI. So always be careful with this. And I never thought of sending an ECG, but just a random thought I sent, it came positive. I mean, it came an MI. So otherwise somebody asked like, well, only 2 episodes of vomiting. So I would have thought, okay, giving a vomiting medicine and sending, then there is a problem. So another case, 66-year-old male, left-sided chest pain, radiates to arms since 2 hours, profuse sweating. His ECG showed ST elevation, lead to 3 AVF, ST depression in V5, V6. So here it is, can be inferolateral MI, inferior and lateral MI. And which of the following investigation is least useful? So many are writing it's RBS. One more thing what I want to say here is possibility whenever there is MI, you have to go for RBS, because if the RBS level is more than 200, the outcome will be bad. That is what the books are given. And here I will say CPK-MB and troponins are not useful at this time, because since 2 hours, if you remember, the CPK-MB will raise after 4 hours and troponin will raise after 3 hours. So we can debate it here. One thing, like maybe he would have started the pathology little before and started out throwing out the symptoms now since 2 hours, possible. But just to give an idea, because sometimes just half an hour pain you're sending for CPK-MB is not advisable. Somebody is coming and telling, I am having pain just since last 10 minutes. You may not get a increased cardiac enzymes in that patient. So there we have to be very tricky. We have to be very careful whether to send it or not. So it elevates after 3 hours. So the last, one more case, the 56-year-old male, left-sided chest pain, radiates from arms since 2 hours, profuse sweating. His ECG showed ST elevation, lead to 3 AVF and depression with lateral MI. Which of the following investigation is useful? Same here, which is the least useful investigation? You can chat it. So many are telling TMT. I think you're right, because in this case, when they're suspecting an acute MI, it is always contraindicated to do a TMT. It will always create problem in the patient. So here, okay, as compared to TMT, CPK-MB or troponin you can do, but you should not advise TMT when you are having an acute MI. So TMT is always like that. So it should be when you are normal also, you should not check, and when you are having problem also. So when that in the moderation, we have to ask for TMT. So during an acute episode of MI, you should not send for TMT. So case 6, one of your neighbor, a 56-year-old man, 5 days back, he had an anterior wall MI, was admitted in an hospital and thrombolized, means he was underwent their treatment and got discharged today. After reaching home, he developed chest pain and possibly repeat MI. So there is possibility of repeat MI, but most of the time after thrombolysis, it will not happen with this, within 5 days. But there is possibility. There are possibilities. So it repeated again. Which of the following investigation is least full in this patient? So many are saying a repeat ECG. We have to do a repeat ECG to confirm whether it is a MI or not, because he had MI before. It doesn't mean that this patient is having MI or not, because we have possibly a repeat MI. So to confirm, we have to repeat ECG. And I think some of them got the answer. Many are telling troponin. Because troponin, what happens is, if you remember that slide, troponin rises within 3 hours and it stays in the blood for 10 to 14 days. So there will be always an increased level of troponin in a patient who had already an MI. So in that case, if you are asking this test now, obviously it will be raised, and we will not be able to conclude it is because of present condition or he had an MI already because of that. So troponin is not advisable when there is a repeat MI. You can ask CKMB. Why CKMB is? CKMB always gives an idea. CKMB always gives an idea that it goes to the peak within 24 hours and come back to normal within 1 day. So 24 hours, it just come back to normal. You're not able to find out whether CPKMB is raised or not. So here you can get a increased CPKMB. You can send for that test, but you cannot send for troponin. And coronary angiogram. There he has only underwent for thrombolysis. So they are not done a coronary angiogram. So he's getting recurrently. So now if it is an MI, stabilize him. We have to go for a coronary angiogram to find out whether he's having a coronary artery disease. If it is how many triple vessel block or double vessel problem. So that to identify, we have to go for coronary angiogram. So answer is troponin will be elevated in the blood for 10 to 14 days after an attack of MI. So one more case, 56-year-old male, factory worker, non-case of diabetes and hypertension on drugs, complaints of syncope occasionally, exertional dyspnea and orthopnea. Which of the following investigation is least useful? It is easy. Yeah, all are saying it's correct, like troponin, because there is no chest pain. So in this case, what can be the probable diagnosis in this patient? It will be a differential diagnosis. Anyone? What can be the diagnosis? Okay. There is possibility of heart failure because the features what he is telling, he's having syncope occasionally and exertional dyspnea and orthopnea. So there is left ventricular involvement is there. So you can always suspect in heart failure. Then going for echocardiography, blood sugar, since he's a non-case of diabetes, we can go for an ECG. But troponin is because since he's not having a chest pain or acute attack, you can go for, you can exclude troponin. Remaining things you can do, the remaining investigations you can do. I think we have running short of time.
No problem, you can go.
Okay. So another one is like another important topic now. See, these are the which, when and why, which we said like what are the investigation is available in cardiology, and next is when and why, when to do, why we should do that test. Okay. So I think the must know or must or should do test we already discussed. These are the tests which you have to do, and blood test is compulsory. ECG whenever you are suspecting a patient who is having a coronary artery disease or left ventricular problems or any other problems or any conduction problem, you can send for ECG and echocardiography suspecting a structural problem. And according to that result, you can go for the further investigations. Okay. So next is the ECG. So basics of ECG, I will tell. We don't have like taking ECG itself is a bigger topic. So in a clinical way, how we can read an ECG. So ECG or electrocardiogram is a graphical depiction of electrical forces generated by the heart. So it is a graphical representation of electrical forces generated by the heart. So there will be, you have seen the ECG, it is like a graph, no? So it is like a principle of galvanometer. So if you see the galvanometer, it understand the electrical, so it's an electromechanical instrument used for detecting indicating the electrical current. So, you know, in our heart, there is production of current, like there is a electrical, electrical current flows from like the conduction system. There is a current flow in our heart. So that we are just using electrodes. We are just getting that reflection of current and just marking in a galvanometer. That is what ECG does. So Dr. Deepu, okay, notation is not possible, no?
Not possible. Actually, Dr.
No,
Pradeep,
no, doctor.
I
In
can do
between,
that.
we can't do the annotation. In between, we can't do.
You just
Okay, fine,
you
fine,
just
fine,
prove
fine.
the session, no problem. Okay.
Okay, fine. Okay. Because I had to draw something over there. It's okay, fine. So now the leads you remember, like if you remember our test, leads of ECG, there are 12 leads, 3 limb leads, and 3 augmented leads, and 6 chest leads. So these are the 3 limb leads. How it is placed. So how it is placed means, if you remember, the lead 1 is always one thing you remember, left is always positive. Okay, left is always positive, right is always negative. That you keep in mind, because left is always positive, right is always negative. So here if you see, the lead 1 is left arm and right arm is the negative one. So lead 1 is left arm is positive and right arm is negative, and lead 2, left leg is negative and right arm is negative. Okay, that is lead 2. And lead 3 is again, left is always positive, but left leg has 2 L's, means left leg is having 2 positive. Okay, so left leg is having positive and left arm is having only 1 L, so there is only 1 positive and 1 negative. So left leg is positive, left arm is negative. This is the lead placement of limb lead. And now the axis of lead 2, what we are going to explain further, is in the axis of lead 2. Okay, these are the cameras. So now these dots what you are seeing here, you can see the right arm, below that are blue. You can imagine there as a cameras, and left there is a 1 camera, and left leg also we kept a camera. So I'm not telling it's not a camera, but just they are observing the heart from that angle. So when I said it is an inferior MI, so now if you see 2-3 AVF, why it is inferior MI is 2-3 AVF. So 2 is, so always the camera is fixed at the positive end of the lead. Remember that way. The positive end of the lead is always camera is fixed. Why? Because I wanted to show something here. It is not possible. So I'll try to explain now. See, not convey anyway. It's okay. So these cameras are observing. So why 2-3 AVF is inferior is, if you see from the left leg above, so now you can imagine from this left leg, this area, somebody is observing the heart, how it will be, which area they can see. It is always the inferior portion of the heart. So AVF also will come. AVF is augmented lead of foot, no? So augmented, that is AVF. That is also in the left limb, left leg. So those 3 are looking from down. So that means it is seeing the inferior part of the heart. So just 3D imagination of the heart, you can just keep it in your mind. So what you are talking is now the lead 2. If you lead 2, you can think, no, it is which angle. That way we are talking now. So P wave, what happens in case P wave is, you know, like our heart, it initiates the the impulse starts from the SA node and reaching to the AV node. So during that time, what happens is, so now SA node is started the impulse, which is now this arrow mark you can see here. During resting, membrane potential of our heart muscles are always negative. So okay, so I am not explaining that way because it will not convey. So
I will make that
because
possible in next class here.
Okay, fine. Anyway, okay. So P wave is atrial depolarization, means our action resting membrane potential of our heart muscles are always negative. So during depolarization, all those negative atrial area will be becoming positive, and it is reaching to AV node. So in AV node, there is a delay. In AV node, because the AV node is a very small structure and very combined structure. So the impulse is reaching there. reaching the AV node, it will be very slow because the conduction, because that, if this one know how to say, if I say, it will be easy to understand, but it will be very slow. So there is a delay in that. That is known as PR segment. Sorry, PR segment. So P wave is the atrial depolarization, means there is atrial contraction, means atrial contraction during that time, atrial depolarization. And next is when there is during SA node, there is a delay, that is SA nodal delay, that sorry, not SA node, AV node, there is a delay, and that is PR interval. Then next is QRS complex. So QRS complex is PR interval, I said, there is a delay in AV node. Next is QRS complex. So when it is reaching to the left bundle branch, what happens? The left bundle branch will impulse will send to the septum. So not the right, it is always left. So if you see this image, if the left Purkinje fibers are sending the impulse to the septum, it is facing to, so it is facing towards the now Dr. Deepo.
I think we can have a second session
we,
on that here.
it is difficult because
It
what
is
I
very difficult
expected
for
was
you.
I can just draw and
No, it's okay. You could have told me before so that I can make that everything possible. Okay. It's okay.
Fine.
It's okay. I think it's a time. It's by 4 p.m. now. Can we have a question answer session on a short brief? And before that, I would like to have a case presentation by Dr. Smriti. Dr. Matthew, are you there?
Okay. I'll just.
Yes.
Please make her a co-host. Okay. After that, we have a question answer session. Okay. Dr. Smriti, are you able to hear me?
Yes, doctor. I'll start.
Yeah. You please share your screen. Okay.
Yeah. Good afternoon to one and all. This is Dr. Smriti from Chennai. I'd like to thank IHMA for giving me an opportunity to present the case. So I'll quickly go into the case and start sharing the screen. So this is today I'll be discussing a case of freckles. We all know freckles is a pigmentation and they become more pronounced when a person is exposed to like flat, irregular, and quickly I'll just give a brief of the pathophysiology. We know melanin is secreted. Melanin is a type of protein which is secreted by the melanocytes. There are two types of melanin: the dark brown melanin, which is called the eumelanin, and the reddish brown yellow melanin, which is called the phenylalanine. And the gene responsible for the melanin secretion is the MC1R gene, which is the which when a person is having MC1R gene active, they have dark brown melanin secretion. So this is the pathophysiology. I'll quickly go into the case. So this is a female case of age 33. She had complaints of pigmentation in face, mainly on the cheeks since 11 years. And occasionally she'll be having itching and pigmentation, which will get increased on sun exposure. And in general, her skin type was oily and greasy. So other than that, she had no other complaints. Coming to her physical general, all the parameters were normal: appetite, sleep, everything was normal. Just her perspiration was increased in axilla and it was offensive. Coming to her menstruation, it was regular but little scanty. It lasts only 1 or 2 days. And mental general, she was in general a person with no, she would get angered easily and weep when things don't happen her way. And coming to family history, she recently mentioned that her mom had similar pigmentation issues. We all know that freckles can run through the family, and this is the image which was taken before the um, treatment had started. So I'll quickly tell the prescription. In the following slides, I will discuss the repertorial reference and the materia medica references. So I had given her Lycopodium 200 fortnightly alternate Sunday bedtime with Sepia 6 and Anticrude 6 BD for 2 months. Generally, I give patients medications for a month, but since she was a patient from abroad, I had to give it for a longer duration. So I had given for 2 months. So after the first 2 months got over, this is the corresponding image is shown. After 2 months, there is slight change in the pigmentation. Only marginal improvement was there, but in the follow-up, she mentioned that there were no new spots, and the occasional itching was also not there, and her menstrual flow was also improved. So after the 2 months, I again gave her the medications for 2 months, where I maintained Lycopodium dosage, Sepia dosage I had maintained. Anticrude from 6, I had changed the potency to 30, and I had given for 2 months. So the before and after is the image which is shown. Before is the initial picture which I already showed you, and after the last two set of 2 months medication, this is the result. We can see that almost 90 to 95% of the spots are gone, just 1 or 2 spots are left. So the repertorial references I had taken was Kent face discoloration brown spots, Boric brown spot skin, and Murphy direct rubric is there where Lycopodium and Anticrude is coming. Lycopodium comes in 3 marks, and perspiration offensive Lycopodium and graphitis sepia all comes. And I'll explain the medications, each medication now. In sepia, if you take Materia Medica by Dr. Kent, he has mentioned the word freckles itself. It is common for whole face to be covered with enormous freckles. And even in Materia Medica by Dr. Vitolkas, he has mentioned in sepia skin, he has mentioned there will be irregular brown flat spots. So coming to anticrude, anticrude we all know the keynote symptom of anticrude is unhealthy, ugly looking skin and greasy skin. And personally, anticrude is a pet remedy for me in pigmentation cases because it always helps. And I've seen good results with anticrude. And Lycopodium, I would like to share. Um, Liver is closely associated with hair and skin. So in cases where there is a hair fall or any skin issues, we should think of a liver remedy. So here I have taken perspiration offensive as a confirmatory rubric where Lycopodium is strongly indicated. So that is a reason why I had given Lycopodium in infrequent dosages. And the other thing which I wanted to mention in this presentation, the crux of the presentation is, if we will take a case, we will know that is the indicated remedy, but it will give you only a marginal or a slight improvement. We always tend to try changing the remedy. Instead, we should know it is a chronic case, so we can always buy time. We have the liberty of taking little time by trying to change the potency, because it has helped. If you see here, there is slight improvement is there. So instead of changing the remedy itself, we can try changing the potency, and that can help, because in an acute case we have to act quick and fast. So in an acute case we can't take that chance. So in chronic we can try, in similar like these kind of chronic cases we can try. And these are the other remedies for freckles. And quickly I will do the differentials. Three differentials I want to do. First is lentiginous. Lentiginous is similar to freckles, but it is large. It is common in old people. They don't change with sun exposure, and they tend to fuse together and form larger spots. Next is melasma. Melasma is similar to freckles, but it is common in people with dark complexion, and they are darker than compared to freckles. And it is also called as the pregnant women's mask, because it is more common in pregnant women, because it is closely associated with the hormonal levels. So it is also common in people who have who are using contraceptive pills. The third is mole and freckle differentiation is, mole can happen in any part of the body, and They need not be flat. Sometimes mole are elevated and they do not change with exposure to sun. And the other thing is post-inflammatory pigmentation, which is common after in the site where after an injury is happening or after a cosmetic procedure like a laser or so. So I'd like
Okay,
to
Dr. Smriti.
yeah, I'd like to conclude my speech by thanking IHMA once again for giving me an opportunity, and I'd like to thank Dr. Deepu for helping me and encouraging me to do this presentation. Also, my friends and family. Thank you.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Deepu?
Yeah,
Hello.
Dr. Matthew, is Dr. Suraj is available?
Hello, hello. Deepu, I can't hear you.
Dr. Suraj is available or not?
One second.
Yeah, I'm available.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I haven't seen your name actually. Okay, so we can have a short question answer session on 5 minutes. Okay. So if people having any doubts regarding the cases of Smriti, I will share her number. Can you share the 3 basic tests which you said first, sir?
Hello.
Okay, those 3 tests was one is blood sugar level and renal function test and lipid profiles. So those 3 tests are supposed to like all the patients whom you are suspecting or a middle-aged person whom you are suspecting to test. It is always advisable to test those 3 tests. That is RFT, lipid profile, and blood sugar level.
If you can see, you can answer. Okay.
Okay, I think somebody asked how much the BNP cost. I don't know exactly how much is the cost for that test.
Is it that ProBNP and BNP are same?
Which one, sir?
Is the
Yeah.
ProBNP or BNP is both are same?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. Recently I had done a ProBNP test. That is why okay. For my mother. Okay.
But even same. It is also for cardiac arrest only. The range is somewhat different in that. That's it.
Okay. I had done
For cardiac
ProBNP for my mother. It was costly around 2000.
Okay, same then. I mean, what's the outcome for that? Same thing we are doing for the cardiac failure only.
Okay.
So it comes 2000. Then I think somebody asked.
Okay. Deepu, continue.
Significance of RFT in cardiac investigations. I think
Hello. Dr. Suraj, I think there have a problem. Dr. Suraj? Hello.
Hello.
I think Dr. Suraj have some problem.
So we can conclude the session. No problem.
Okay. Dr. Shaini?
Dr. Shiny is not there, I think so.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, doctor, continue.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Good evening, dear delegates. Good evening, Dr. Saji, State President, Dr. Sajid, General Secretary, IHMA, District President, Kottayam District, Dr. Krishna Kumar, Kottayam District Secretary, Dr. Sojan, Kottayam Town Chapter Secretary, Dr. Matthew George. I am Dr. Shaini on behalf of IHMA Kottayam. Hope you all attended this session with great enthusiasm. Our faculty, Dr. Suraj, has opened a vast field of information regarding cardiovascular investigations. No need to emphasize that this session will sure become a gem in our knowledge regarding cardiovascular studies. On behalf of IHMA Kottayam, I express my thankfulness to Dr. Suraj KV for sharing this vast session with us, especially in an easily acceptable form. Thank you, Dr. Suraj. Also expecting more sessions from you. I also thank each and every delegates present here for attending and supporting this session. I also thank Dr. Smriti for this great case presentation. Thankful to IHMA State President Dr. Saji K and IHMA General Secretary Dr. Sajan for this session. Also thankful and grateful to State Webinar Coordination Committee for giving an opportunity to IHMA Kottayam to host the 24th Day of Hope 2020. Also, please all of you stay tuned from 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. for today's evening session by your faculty Dr. Narayana Prasad on another beautiful session, Dermatological Rubrics. Thank you all.